Good morning, everyone. I'll make that 10 o'clock. We can have a prompt start. You'll be pleased to hear that this is hopefully the last meeting I'll be chairing, at least for a while, for you. And Peter Topping will be taking over the chairmanship at the next meeting. So I'm sure we'll welcome you then for that, Peter. In the meantime, you're stuck with me. No comments from you, Councillor Reid. In the meantime, you're stuck with me. And we'll make a start with the agenda. We have apologies for absence. I think we have a full house from councillors this morning, but we do have apologies from Jan Willis, who contacted me yesterday to say that she's ill. So I would like to, I'm sure on your behalf, send Jan our best wishes for a speedy recovery. We do have Chris Harvey here on my left, who's attending on her behalf and deputising. So you have that fantastic job this morning of answering all the pertinent questions that councillors will have for you on various things. So there's no other apologies for absence. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Obviously, I'm here, but I need to go to another meeting at 11 o'clock. And also, I declare my interest now in the advanced stuff, which I'd have to go anyway. And as it's at the end of the agenda, please don't come looking for me, because I know you have in the past, which I appreciate, but today is not the day to come and try and find me.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Reid. We'll note that you have to leave before 11 o'clock. No further apologies. We move on to item 2. It's the minutes of the last meeting. Can I just remind councillors that what we're looking at here is the accuracy of those minutes. So are there any points of accuracy on the minutes of the last meeting held on the 31st of January 2024? Not seeing anyone indicating that they have anything to raise on those, so I will sign those as a true record of the minutes. Oh, yes. Before I sign them, however, I'll follow the correct procedure. And can I move that those minutes are approved? Can someone move that, please? I'll move that, Councillor Reid, and can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Oliver, thank you. Is everyone agreed on that? Right. Moving on to disclosure of members' interests. Everyone knows the form on this. We've heard from Councillor Reid on the advanced report. Are there any further declarations of interest for any other item on this agenda? No? Right. The first substantive item is our monitoring report and our action log for 2023-24. And I think, Kevin, you're presenting this for us.
Yes, can do, Chair. I think the first item is relating to the updates on the CAL report, and I think the update was produced for the November 23 meeting. The items 2 and 3 I think are in progress, and obviously we heard from the monitoring officer at the previous meeting. So as and when there is an appropriate time for an update, that will come to Audit Committee, as you would expect. In terms of information to be provided on item 4, I don't know whether the Deputy Monitoring Officer is aware of whether that email has been sent or whether indeed members of the Audit Committee have received that information. No. No, we'll pick that one up to make sure that action is completed, Chair. And the final matter there has been stated as completed because that information has been shared. I think the Audit Committee would agree that that's been the case.
We have any comments?
Just on that information about the Borderlands project, you did actually share it, but all we got really was the terms of reference of setting it up, and there wasn't really any detail that would help people on the Audit Committee understand that governance arrangements were in place and being followed. What it did confirm is that we are the accountable body for the Borderlands project. It's a project of about £280 million, so it is quite significant. I looked at the website and saw a few very cursory notes of meetings that have been held at the Borderlands project, but I couldn't find any financial information at all. And I think we should have a further and detailed report to this committee, including balance sheets and accounts for the last 2 or 3 years. And what brings it into mind is that it's been up and running for about 3 years or possibly more now. Specific amounts were delegated to us to administer for specific work streams, and some of those work streams could well be time limited, but they seem to be falling behind a bit. And I think it's right that this council should actually put in place, or be assured that there is in place, proper governance process and proper reporting to councillors around the whole thing. So I'll leave it at that. I think Councillor Dale might think something similar.
No, just to say, I support that. I think we do need further information because Borderlands has been going on for a long, long time. And actually, we want to see some outcomes. And I would like to see, as you said, we've got it all project-led in various areas from Prado up to the Borderland, obviously, and across. And I think we need to know exactly how the money's being spent, where it's being spent, and what are the outcomes so far, because it's so long that one feels we'd like to see actually something that's been done, how it's been financed, whether it's been financed by Borderlands, the county council has to have an input, etc. So it's just the whole picture, which I agree with Councillor Jackson about.
Thank you very much. I'm actually really quite surprised to hear the comments about Borderlands, because each Borderlands meeting is live streamed. So if the members who say they can't find notes or minutes will be able to find all the information of all the meetings that are all live streamed. In addition to that, we publish regular reports. And I'm very proud of the work that Northumberland is undertaking as part of the Borderlands Partnership. It's taking forward projects that would not normally even be considered in the normal run of things, and it's going very well. So if any members want to know more about Borderlands, then of course they know how to do that. They can either contact me, because I'm on the board of Borderlands. I haven't had any representations from either of the members that have spoken here. And secondly, I think have a look at the live streamed meetings, and they may learn more about it there. So it's easy to criticise. It's much more difficult to actually make the effort to find out the facts.
Can I just come back on that? Because it actually goes back a few meetings in the Audit Committee, and it's about our role as the Audit Committee. And all we're asking for, and we had asked for several months actually, for a report on the governance arrangements around Borderlands. There was no real criticism of the project. We're probably in full support, but it's such a lot of money. We need to be assured from this council's point of view that the governance and audit arrangements are comprehensive.
Thanks, Chair. I don't think Councillor Jackson's request is unreasonable, but what I would like to add is, as a member of the Bedlington Place Board, I've had all the information that I need to receive. I'm very satisfied. Each of us have received information only very recently to tell us exactly where we are in progress. And I think one of the complications is, because it's not being shared, people aren't aware of who's progressing where and who's in the second tranche and who's perhaps not up to speed. And of course, there has been changes of personnel along the line as well. But I just want to put on record, as a member of the Bedlington Place, I'm more than satisfied with what's happening for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of the committee? Councillor Oliver.
On a separate point, Kevin, you gave a very, very brief update on points 2 and 3 on the list. Is there any sort of timescale attached to that?
Thank you, Chair. Not that I'm able to provide today. I think obviously the monitoring officer gave his advice, and I don't know whether he wants to add anything. But in terms of when there is an update to be provided to committee, it will of course be provided. I'm not in a position today to give it a time frame on that, unfortunately.
Just Just to confirm, Chair, I've got nothing to add other than what the monitoring officer explained to the committee on the last occasion.
Councillor Dale.
Can I just go back to, actually we've had our peer review report, which we discussed the other day. And there were two things on that item, which I actually raised at council. One was about the value for money, which the peer review team said that we need to have a better understanding for value for money. Now, I'm not sure if that comes under this committee, but I think it's something, obviously, because it's in the peer review, we should pick it up. So could I ask that we put that on our worksheet, please? That's where I was informed to say bring it to order. And the other one was for the setting of the budget and the whole process, and that was referred to in the peer review as well. I mentioned that, and that was once again, they said it should go to audit. I'm not sure if that should go to audit. It could go to somewhere else, I don't know, but I think it's something that we need to have it noted here, because through full council I was told to refer it to audit. So if that's noted, and whether that actually goes, but I think maybe Kevin will be able to say about the value for money, whether we should be looking at that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, certainly value for money is within the terms of reference of the Audit Committee. So if that's something that Audit Committee would like to see more information on, that's certainly something that we can think about how we provide that information to you. If you leave that with me, Chair, I can pick that up with Jan, and we can make sure that we think about how we do that reporting back to you to give you the information you need.
Thank you, Kevin. I think we're happy to do that. The only point I had was on 4 about the email for the legal definitions of illegal and unlawful. That's still yet to happen, I believe. I don't know what the delay on that is, because it should be fairly straightforward, so we can just chase that up, please. Are there any further comments from anyone on this? No, right. So if we look at page 15, we have some recommendations. I don't propose to just read them out. I'm sure you can find them yourself. And it's just the standard recommendations for this agenda item. Are we all happy to agree these recommendations? Agreed. Thank you. Item 5, we have the another report from Kevin, which is the annual Audit Committee work programme for the coming year, 2024-25. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a report which we bring to the March meeting each year, just as an administrative item for you as a committee, just identifying the core business work programme for the year ahead. The table, which is on pages 18 and 19 in the papers, just sort of take the meetings throughout the year and a broad flavour of the reports that we would expect to come to each of those meetings. Obviously, I take on board the comments we've just had around value for money and any other reports which may be added into those agendas. But the idea is to give Audit Committee an idea of the core business items that may be supplemented with other items as the year progresses. But as a broad minimum, that's what we would expect to see come into those meetings during the year at this point in time. Chair, wouldn't say too much more than that, but happy for any questions or comments from committee.
Well, committee will be pleased to hear that we've already approved these recommendations, because I've done it again and got ahead of myself. Are there any questions or comments on this from members of the committee? No? Right. Bit of deja vu here. Page 15, there are 3 recommendations. You didn't mind them before, so hopefully nobody minds them now. So they all agreed? Fantastic. Right. Sorry?
Do they get formally moved and seconded?
Do they need to?
Yeah. Every recommendation needs to be moved.
All right. I'm advised that for that we do actually need to have a formal proposal to approve those 3 recommendations and a second. So, Councillor Dale, you formally approve?
Yeah, can I propose the recommendations?
Right.
As stated in number 3, 1, 2 and 3.
Right, there we go. Sorry about that, everyone. As I said, you'll be pleased to hear I'm not chairing any more meetings beyond this one. I'm pleased to hear it too, frankly. Right, item 6, annual review of Audit Committee effectiveness. And this is our self-assessment that Kevin mentioned at the last meeting. I'll hand back over to Kevin for more detail on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a piece of work which we bring regularly to Audit Committee, and obviously members will be aware of the good practice guidance which is issued by SIPFA periodically, and we then undertake a self-assessment of our arrangements against that good practice. So the latest self-assessment is within the pack, starting on page 27, and members will be familiar with the report and the layout. I think one thing that I would mention is that when we last brought this self-assessment to committee will remember we agreed to undertake a bit of a wider review with the then chair and members of the committee. And members will recall that that commenced, and indeed a number of members met with the former chair. But obviously when the former chair stood down, it sort of meant that sort of had to be put on abeyance until we appoint our new independent chair. So hopefully once our new chair is confirmed at the meeting of council in May, we'll be able to pick that review up again with the new chair and think about any other amendments we want to make as part of that review of ourselves. But the latest self-assessment is there, and obviously we would also then use that as the basis, as we did in the previous year, just to write an annual report on behalf of Audit Committee to Council to reflect the work we've done and how we've met our terms of reference and so on. But any comments, I'm happy to take on, Chair.
Councillor Dale.
Yeah, can I just ask you, number 2, I know it says that minutes of all audit committee meetings are considered by the next meeting of full council, and there has been some changes. And if I recall, Councillor Towers, you did a report at the last meeting, but I'm not sure that the actual minutes are there for people to discuss in the full council meetings. Can we just go and have a look at that? Because I remember a recording that I think you had a full report, but the actual, and there were statements in there, but I'm not sure we actually had the minutes as separate. Separately? I don't know. I can't remember.
They were, to my understanding, but
yes. I mean, can you? I mean, I might be totally wrong, but I just if we could have a look at that. I can look at the last meeting.
I will, Chair. And my understanding is that the minutes do go. I know you introduced, Chair, the annual report to Council a couple of minutes ago, so I don't know whether that's what Councillor Dale's thinking of.
I think that's where I want to just have a look at closely, please, to ensure that everybody has the opportunity, because it's a separate, part of the...
It's like any other committee, the minutes do feature in
yes, absolutely.
full council packs, yeah. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. First of all, good to hear that you are still planning to bring something forward after we had that sort of deeper dive that was a sort of broader group of people involved. So I wonder if we could add that to the action list. I think that might be useful just so we don't forget about it. And then the... actually, no, I think the other question's been addressed.
Thank you. Any further comments from anyone on this? I would just like to thank Kevin for his work on that. I think it always seems to be doing a self-assessment is always quite difficult because you really do have to, it really forces you to reflect, and I suppose that's the point of it. But I'm pleased to see that over time, when I've looked at these, the ticks are moving more across the boxes into grey compliance, and there are far fewer ticks on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side. So I do think that shows a general sense of an improving picture and really picking up on what could be done better and then actually looking to do it better. So that's my only comment on it. Where are we? Page 25. So if we look at the recommendations on page 23, just double checking these are the right recommendations, and they are. We have 3 recommendations at paragraph 3 there. Again, I don't think we need to read them out. Are we happy with those, and do we have someone who will propose them? Councillor Reid, seconder. Councillor Oliver. Everyone else happy with these? Great, thank you. Item 7, we now have the joint report of the Cabinet Member for Inspiring Young People and the Cabinet Member for Caring for Adults. I think we have a note on that. Who's presenting that? As we have Alan Hartwell and Alan Curry presenting this for us.
Do you want us to remain here or should we come over there?
Okay, just to stay there, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Alan Hartwell from Children's Services, and this is Alan Curry from Adult Services, and this is a joint report. It's the usual 6-monthly report on external inspections that have taken place within Children's Services and Adult Services. The date that the report covers is the 1st of July 2023 to the 31st of December 2023. So it does provide a relatively up-to-date position. The report is in a similar format to previous reports, but it does also provide some additional information on a trend around adults' inspections over a longer period of time, which is the graph that's within the report. I'll just provide some highlights in terms of what the report's saying, and then myself and Alan would be happy to take any questions from the floor. It does provide a positive picture of inspection performance over the 6-month period, with improved inspection judgments within adult services and continued strong inspection judgments within children's services. There's been an improvement in terms of the proportion of adults providers who are judged by the Care Quality Commission to be either good or outstanding. That's been an improved picture. And also, the report does make mention of the fact that adult services have received notification that they will receive an inspection from the Care Quality Commission fairly soon. The report does also refer to the very strong performance of Northumberland schools within Ofsted inspections. It's significantly better than the national average, and the data is provided within the report. I think just to provide some context as well, because members will be very aware of some of the national coverage around Ofsted inspections of schools and some of the impacts of those that's been covered within the national press. And certainly within Northumberland, it's the case that where we are requested to get involved by a school, whether that be an academy or whether that be a local authority maintained schools, the local authority school improvement team does wrap around the school, whether that's about specialist support that the school might need, or whether it's support to the leadership of that school, or whether it's support around specific incidents as well. So I think really that's just important to note, because obviously the Ofsted inspections are just one tool and one particular measure about gauging effectiveness. Yes, they are important, and it's important to bring that information here, but there is also further contextual information that lies underneath that. The report also... Okay, thank you. The report does also make mention of the ongoing inspections of children's residential homes that happen every year, and it also mentions about we are expecting the ILACS inspection, which is the inspection of local authority children's services. We're expecting that imminently. That's an inspection of the children's social care service, and we are also expecting our area special educational needs and disabilities inspection as well, and also the inspection of the Northumberland Skills Service. So we're expecting the phones to ring imminently on one of those in the fairly near future. I think that already covers things, Chair, in terms of the highlights from the report, but as I said, myself and Alan are happy to take any questions from the floor.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Oliver.
I mean, congratulations. It's continuing good news, and the overall picture is very good. Just a sort of question I think we've touched on in the past, but perhaps you could remind us, where a school that isn't a local authority school requires improvement or isn't performing well, and they don't ask for our sort of support and intervention, is there anything much we can do at all to try and influence a turnaround in that school?
And obviously, academies certainly are, they are self-governing. But we do still have channels to meet with head teachers, to meet with governors. There are various statutory powers that the local authority has, but yes, I think it's fair to say that if that academy doesn't ask for support, then yes, very much the onus is on that academy chain to actually provide that to provide that support. But yes, the local authority does get involved in terms of contacting that school. We may ask them if they require any support, and if there is challenge to be offered, then that would still happen.
Thank you. Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I reiterate what my colleague said about improvement, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that the staff retention within the local authorities is fantastic, and knowing the difficulties for staff retention in some areas it has status and unfortunately been kind of marked down because of for being able to recruit staff, so that's very difficult. And I think we need to really, brag about how good we are with what we do with the staff that we've got and how we look after them. And I'm sure that would hopefully improve the recruitment, because staff in a care sector feel very undervalued. And I think that some of the instances are very highly qualified, and they've got to be a special person to be able to do this special, kind of work. Also, and I know it's ongoing with the out of area placements, and I know the children's service that will be very difficult financially for it. But could we be kept regularly updated with that, if you don't mind, please? Because obviously I know it's an ongoing concern. And the other thing is, Thorndale, and there again, was previously good, and it's because of staffing again, and it's a shame because it's not actually the home's fault or the quality of care that these people will be receiving. It's because of retention of staff again. So in considering, it's excellent because private providers are having more difficulty recruiting because obviously they're not getting the pays and conditions that we are Northumberland County Council. So I must commend both of you on your excellent work, and long may it continue going in the right direction. So thank you very much.
I'll pass that on to colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much for your report, Alan. Can I just mention, and what I will say is I think it's great to see that children's residential homes are having a good judgment, because I used to visit when we were able to go and visit the homes and things like that, and I used to go and visit all those homes, and the amount of work and the issues that they have to resolve, and they really work so hard, and they certainly deserve the good, if not outstanding, judgment. Just going back to what Councillor Oliver mentioned about the schools and the reports and the some of them belonging to academies, and I think Alan, you kindly sent me a report. I can't turn around, so I'm going to have to respond this way. You sent a report about those schools that are academies, and I think it'd be quite interesting to find out which are academies for all of us to understand. And I think one of the things I've got is that actually Northumberland's first schools have always been good or outstanding, and which is absolutely the middle schools separate, but the high schools have always been the issue, sometimes with Berwick or whatever, have been ongoing. What I would like to see is, and I think it's here but not all, is the schools that have changed from first to primary and how they've managed that change, because it's quite a big difference from being, going from the 3-tier to 2-tier, and this council has been taking forward that. So I'm not sure, I can understand where the schools have been primary, have become primary, and there's nothing before, because obviously there wouldn't be. But for instance, Wylam First School, previous grade, there isn't one there. And Ovingham First School, there's nothing there either. So I don't know why those are missing. But I would like to see that the schools that have gone from first to primary, that they've managed it, because I think that's really good news if they've kept their outstanding or good judgment, because that's really good for the children. So I think that'd be an interesting piece of information, because they are changing. So it's managing all that change, and I think we all had concerns originally whether all the schools could manage them, but it's good to see the good result.
Yes, I can certainly take that back to our head of school improvement, and I'll ask for a briefing note to be provided.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions on this report? Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the CQC inspection that's coming up, and it's in some ways picking up on what Councillor Grimshaw was just saying, that the hard work that people put into this activity. In terms of preparation for the CQC report, have you got a tried and tested means of ensuring that the evidence is gathered and that people understand what's expected of them for a CQC inspection, so that this isn't about leading the witness, but it's about making sure that that all the evidence is there for the inspection rather than not. Interested in your view on that.
Do you want to?
This is a question for the adult side of things, so I'll answer that one. Yeah, so since we were first notified over a year ago that we would receive the CQC inspection in adults, we've been preparing for it. We've done just to give you some headlines of activities, we've had 2 mock inspections, if you like, which were undertaken by a former director of adult social services who's been working quite heavily in the area. So we had one in January of last year and we had one in February of this year, and she's provided us with quite a rigorous mock inspection, if you like. In terms of the evidence, we've been collating that for well over a year now, and the first part of our inspection was to submit that evidence by the 28th of February, I think it was. So we've complied with that. The evidence has gone in. But you're right. I think the communication out to our colleagues who may work in outlying offices, for example, is a key part of this, about getting them, making sure they're aware of the inspection regime coming, making sure that they're aware of what that will entail for them, and giving them the confidence really to be honest, open, but not nervous about the inspection, and to actually sell how positive the work that they're undertaking is as well. So there's a lot of communication going on. Our Executive Director, Neil Bradley, is doing road shows out to all of the local offices, and the inspection, CQC inspection, is a big part of what he is communicating to staff and receiving questions about as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Chair, just a comment, and I know for a fact that even the private providers gets excellent support from the inspections into the private care homes too. Without their support, as yourself and your team do, it's invaluable, because they give a lot of information and good advice to the providers. So if there's anything that needs to be kind of tweaked up, it's actually on point. I mean, I'm speaking of experience of that, but so that you, even in the private sector, your support is invaluable as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just so you share, Peter.
Kevin.
If I can just add to that, Chair, just to pick up on a couple of Alan's points there, we, as Internal Audit, have recently worked with one of the service managers within adult services in terms of developing a framework for undertaking those visits to establishments, and we've worked with them to look at that framework so that we can place reliance on that, if you like, as an internal audit team. And I think we gave that a reasonable assurance level, so we can give that assurance back as well that those actions are in place. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much for that report. It was a really interesting read, and great to see the continued progress. The progress since even just June last year is really good to see. So thank you very much for that. There's no recommendations on this. It was just an item for information. But thank you very much. And I think you can take away from that our thanks as a committee to you and your teams for all of the hard work that's detailed in this report. Item 8, we have Amy, the Corporate Fraud Manager, giving us a report on the counter-fraud interim measures.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we've brought our interim report, which gives details of the progress and the work that we've been doing in the first 6 months of the year. It's a report that you've seen regularly at the committee, so it'll be familiar to yourselves, providing information on the work we've done, the areas that we've worked in, and the financial results that we've recorded. Just one highlight, I guess, to bring to your attention is at the last audit committee that I attended, we discussed how we'd been in a position to restart more criminal-focused investigations, and we anticipated that would therefore allow it to increase the amount of sanctions we could report on. At page 56, the first 6 months of this year, the table at the top of there shows that we've recorded 6 sanctions in the first 6 months of this year, which is the equivalent of what we were able to record in the whole of 22-23, so there is definitely an increase in that, which is great. There's also a summary as provided previously about the single person discount project, which is continuing at the minute. That has a further 6 months to run, and then decisions will be made as to whether we'll continue with that or not. But results that we've recorded from that are really positive and show really good value for money from that project. We've also included work that I've been doing on a corporate fraud risk assessment, where we have looked at national trends and national high risks of fraud across local government nationally, and how that then sort of translates into Northumberland County Council. Do those national trends have the same impact in Northumberland, or are there differences which impact us in things that change, obviously given the area that we work in and the communities that we serve? So some information on the work that's being done in there, and within that we've provided a table which starts at page 66, where we've actually highlighted what the higher risks are within Northumberland County Council, what those risks mean, what actually we already do, so what existing measures and controls, and then just considered if we had resource and capacity to strengthen what gateway into systems, or strengthen what detection rates, what would be the suggested activity that we would do. So that's all there for you within the tables to consider. But other than that, I think that's everything. Happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Amy. Do we have any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. It just shows you how all the work that you've been undertaking has been growing over the years since we started. I think it was 2014-15 when it was set up. I think Alan set it up. And it's when you see the amount of work and the types of work you're doing, it's very broad. So I was just going through, and thank you very much for all the amount of work and the income you're saving on the council tax, and also the message you're getting out to everybody that, you know, we have got a very, very strong fraud team, and they will investigate, and that's a clear message that should be put across everywhere. Just to add one of the normal ones, but you've got the COVID-19 relief. Are you still doing work on that? Because it's obviously a national issue. So are you still doing work on that, or is there a time when you draw a line?
So the work initially that we were doing within the corporate fraud was to do with the self-isolation payments and looking at them. So that work, that's finished now, because they were dealt with pretty quickly after the time that they'd been paid out. There is still a little bit of ongoing work with the recovery of some of the business grants. So we're just working alongside accounts receivable to try and sort of tidy up some of that debt. But as regards to the work ongoing, I think all of the debt has been realised now and recorded.
And sorry, can I just ask about the council tax with the FPTs? Obviously, that's one of your big pieces of work you're doing, and is that ongoing?
The what, sorry?
The special SPD review project?
Yes, so the single person discount review project was initially signed off as a 2-year project. So that's still ongoing until the summer of this year. at which point we'll be, before then, it'll be reviewed and decisions made as to whether or not that will continue long term.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I see you've got cyber security on your action list as a red, and I can quite understand why. And it's a threat to all large organisations in the public and private sectors. Can we be assured that there's been some form of external review of cyber security in Northumberland County Council, just to make sure that we're adequately covered and protected by the systems that we've got? It's more of a general question. It's probably not for you. It's probably for the other people on the panel there.
Come and check. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Jackson, obviously you will be aware that obviously the risks that are within the document apply to most large organisations and certainly every local authority in the country. In terms of cybercrime, we've seen that rise significantly in recent times. And as in the new corporate risk register, which we brought to committee in January, cyber security is one of the new corporate risks, and a number of measures are in there to control and mitigate against that risk. And something that our IT department do quite regularly is exactly as you've described, to get some external companies, third parties to try and do exactly the damage that we do, so that we can do it and shore up those perimeter security sort of defences that we have.
Thank
you. Councillor Sessford.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm looking at the risk analysis, and there's a bit that's talking about checking on post-sale checks, resales and transfers of housing tenancy fraud. And I'm just wondering how big an issue is this, what actions are taken, and
is this with regards to the right to buys?
Yes.
So once somebody's purchased the house, and if they resell it in the future.
I know that. Do these checks take place as a matter of routine? Because it's looking in here as though this is something you're thinking of starting to do rather than actually takes place.
Yeah. So what the involvement that the corporate fraud team have at the minute with the right to buys is we do all the pre-sale verification as a preventative measure, so to prevent people from buying the houses. We've had instances in the past where before we did the checks, looking at it post-sale is very difficult and expensive, so we'd do it pre-sale. So we make inquiries with regards to, one of the things that we'll look at with regards to that is what's called a deferred resale agreement. And that is about whether anybody has already agreed to resell the property or transfer the property at a later date, because that would affect the discount or even their entitlement to purchase the property. So those checks are carried out at the minute as a matter of course on every single right to buy application. With regards to additional, this is just an idea of additional work that we could do if the resource allows. There is an option to do then further work down the line at a post-sale stage where we could do some inquiries to see whether that property had been resold, at what date it was resold, and then look at then whether that would have had any impact on the discount that they had received.
Yeah, I mean, is this not an area where most fraud could take place post-sale rather than pre-sale? Because pre-sale, everybody knows that the checks are going to take place, and but after, if there's no checks post-sale, then you know they could just say, well, you know, we're getting whatever it is, 70% off or something, and then
yeah,
it's quite a good way to. But if the post-sales aren't as active as maybe they could be, then that's possibly a bigger area for fraud to take place.
It is. So probably about 7 years now we've been doing these pre-sale checks, and not everybody does them. So it's not something that people know definitely happens within Northumberland County Council. Our own housing stock would do them, and we do them with all of Benicia's properties in our area, and we do them with some of Carbon's. But nationally it's best practice, but not picked up, or it's not resourced by all social housing providers and local authorities. So it's not a given necessarily that they're being done. The work that we do is obviously really good and stops a lot of right-to-buyers going through. Post-sale, Northumberland County Council do put a charge on the land registry.
Right.
Which would mean we should be notified if the property is sold or transferred. But there is work to be done to make sure
Does that not always happen?
It's an unknown until we start doing some proactive work on it.
Okay, Chair, if I can just ask one little minor one as well. If you did find people had sold on after they got the discount, post-sale obviously, what action could we take anyway? What would we do?
It would obviously have to be looked at on its individual circumstances. We have had one case where the house was transferred outside of the repayment period, the discount repayment period, but on investigation it was found that they had had a deferred resale agreement, therefore made the discount void.
Right.
And in that case, we were able to put a charge on the land registry to make sure we recovered 100% of that discount.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
You mentioned it's a question of resources, and it would seem to me that this would be something that it would be worth resourcing, because once that house is, because if you create a situation where people know that their post-sale activity may be examined, that might act as a deterrent to people that are sort of doing these deals too, because often it's the person in the house can't afford to buy the house or doesn't want to buy the house. Somebody else comes along and offers them some money to do it, and then they share the proceeds or whatever. And if there was strong post-sale action, then that would be that word would get around quickly, and that would be a strong deterrent, because once the house is lost, it's lost from the public stock for forever. So I don't know whether that's something that the council or internal audit more generally could look at and see whether how much resource it would actually take, because I think it might be worth doing.
Yes, thank you, Jay. Just to come back on Councillor Oliver's point there, I think that's the exact reason why we've done this piece of work. So a lot of the team's work historically has been quite reactive. And what Amy and I have talked about since the team transferred into the service is about how we turn that round a little bit, so we're a bit more proactive in terms of not just responding to reactive cases. So Amy and I have discussed this at some length, kind of unfortunately for Amy, and hence that's why we think let's do the risk assessment across the organisation to see where those areas that we may be able to target our resource is kind of key. So that's exactly why we've done this exercise.
I think the Deputy Leader wanted to comment on this. Would you like to comment, Councillor Wimmer?
Yes, thank you, Chair, for indulging me on that. So, first of all, it's a really interesting area and on a number of topics that you've been discussing today. I'll start with the one on council homes that you've just been addressing. Obviously, we're really keen as a council that people do feel fully free to exercise their right to buy, but that they do so in a responsible way. I think that I hope that you've detected that wherever we look at fraud, we get an answer a lot faster than anyone would out of Angela Rayner, for example, when it comes to these things. What I will say in terms of the work stream is that we'll take this away and we'll maybe see, and I'll discuss with Kevin and Amy and anyone else who might be relevant, whether we can do a little bit of sampling work around this, rather than expend a huge amount of effort and time to look at something on a massive and full expanse. Let's just see if there's some obvious ones there that we can pick up and sample. So we will do that. I would just like to highlight that the work that the team do is phenomenal. You've seen the returns that they make in terms of tackling fraud across the county, and long may that continue. So I would just like to record my thanks to them, Chair, if I may. And then who was it who brought up cyber security? Was that Councillor Jackson? So Councillor Jackson, just to comment on that, literally the first question that I ask every week or every other week that I meet with Chris Thompson, who's head of our digital and IT team, is how much sleep he's lost or not that week over the potential issues around cybercrime, and particularly the targeting of the council by outside bodies, and that can be, for want of a better term, gangster organisations operating from other countries, or it can be other countries themselves, as we've seen through the course of this week, testing our systems, seeing where they can find weakness. And it's something that we take incredibly seriously. We run exercises, and you may well have received emails where we've been testing to see just how much attention you're paying to the concept of not clicking on links and so on, to make sure that our systems are robust and that we can make sure that staff don't fall for the pushing scams and so on that could act as a Trojan horse for our council and put our systems at risk. Because those things don't just open the doorways straight away. Sometimes there's something lurking there for a very long period of time, waiting dormantly to wake up and do damage to the council and its residents and the people that it serves. So it's not only that level of risk, it's then making sure that we have the backups, that we have the ability to fall back on something if the worst were ever to happen. And we've not just been fortunate, we've been incredibly diligent in making sure that we don't fall into that position. But it can happen to anybody at any time. I think the other day I made a joke about an attack or a seeming attack on Greggs and on various other outlets and in the sort of the private sector. People are trying to do this to us all the time. And it's to the credit of Chris and his team that we're not yet been susceptible to it, and long may that continue.
Thank you for that. Councillor Oliver.
I think the Russians are trying to find the recipe for the vegan sausage roll.
They're welcome to it, in my view. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, it's just a very simple question, and thank you for taking me through the complexities of anti-fraud detection, because I haven't got a clue about it. I could be robbed blind via the internet or just picking my pocket. I've been none the wiser. But what I'm interested in was something you said, that as an authority you also check out the right to buy for carbon and Benicia. Do we do that out of kindness, or do we actually level a charge?
Yeah, there is a charge. And I think that is detailed actually in the report. At 4.6, there's information there regarding additional external income. The payments there from Benicia and Carbon are listed, and they're from the right. That's income from the right to buy applications that will verify on their behalf.
Thank you very much. I asked that for a question because I'm so aware we're planning that we don't always get back what we should get. Yeah. And I thought, is this another example? But I'm pleased you've clarified that. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you. Well, coming back from my colleagues' comments with regard to fraud, so we did ask for training, and I know probably ongoing, but there's so many complex issues within the reports. I think we need to be aware a little bit more of actually, getting our head around issues. So I wouldn't mind putting that back on the agenda if you don't mind. But also I take umbrage to the Deputy's remarks when this is such a delicate and realistic report about people committing fraud and how they're going to pay back and what they're doing without getting political snide remarks in. So I would hope you would react to that, because you'd have that councillor waiver, because this is going to be made apolitical committee, and we are adhering to that. So we don't need your snide remarks on political issues, because if you want to get political, I'm sure we can do. But this is not the format in this committee to do so.
Thank you.
Take that back,
no, I won't take it back. Councillor Grimshaw, people should pay their way.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I think we can draw a line under this one now and move on. We're not being asked to do anything other than note the report and the update on the work. That's on page 53. So can we agree that's duly noted? Thank you. Item 9 is the statement of accounts, the group boundary review. And we have Chris Harvey, who's the head of corporate finance, as I said at the top of the meeting, standing in for Jan, who's ill. So, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this report here is the Statement of Accounts Boundary Review. Again, this is an annual report which comes to this committee each March, and it considers which organisation should have their accounts consolidated into the Council's Statement of Accounts as part of the group accounts. And this report relates to that review which has been undertaken for the financial year ending the 31st of March 2024. Particular consideration has been given to Active Northumberland and the level of control which the Council can exert over that organisation. Just probably worth saying the recommendations in here are the same as previous years. So it's the same as what was done in 22, 23 and sort of years prior to that. There's no change. The conclusion was that there's not the level of control over Active Northumberland for those accounts to be incorporated into the Council's group position. So there's a few recommendations to note, and then there's that one to approve regarding Active Northumberland. I think that's it. Just all to say on that one, really, but happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions from members of the committee on this? Councillor Dale.
Sorry, thank you very much. Thank you for the report. Can I just ask you, I couldn't find Northumberland Enterprise Holdings Limited. Is that registered on Companies House?
It should be, yes.
Only because I couldn't find it.
Yeah, there's been no active trade, but it should be registered.
I couldn't find it.
It was incorporated on the 17th of September, 2020.
Right.
Could I just say, it's actually on page 77, 6.21 that NIC, which Cabinet agreed to dissolve on 17th of November 22. So it wouldn't be on Companies House now because I was actually on that and it was dissolved.
The subsidiary of... Yeah, the subsidiary.
Northumbria Integrated Consultancy Limited was dissolved.
Yeah, yes. Which was a subsidiary of NEHL.
Enterprise Holdings.
That's right, there's been no activity yet.
No, I just couldn't find it, so I'll go back and have another look.
Right,
Send me the link. Thank you very much.
Do we have any further comments or questions on this? Right, so as Chris highlighted, most of the recommendations that are on page 75 of the pack going over onto the top of page 76 are just to note, but there is the final one, 3.15, agree Active Northumberland's financial statements should not be consolidated into the Council Statement of Accounts for the financial year ending 31st March 2024. So I think we will need to have a proposal and a seconder to accept these recommendations. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Jackson, seconder. Councillor Sesford. Has everyone agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item 10 is the draft annual governance statement for 2023-24. And I believe, Chris, you're also presenting this.
Yeah. Sorry, are you?
It's in my name, this, and I was expecting to give it. So,
yeah,
if that's okay.
Yeah. Quite happy to allow that. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So this is a very important statement that we make every year. It's particularly important to just consider local government finances at the back of all of this, the difficulties that we have been faced with due to incredibly high inflation rates, COVID and the results of that, and the general local government financing challenges that have faced some councils, but not ours. And I'm extremely grateful to Jan and the team for ensuring that we have, and Richard, as a cabinet member responsible for ensuring we have a very sound financial base, and I'm very grateful for them. That's allowed us, Chairman, to continue to protect our frontline services, and it has allowed us to continue the substantial investment right across the county, whether that's levelling up funds, whether it's our own projects, or of course some of the excellent Borderlands projects that we are seeing up and running and in formulation now. What we've done in terms of governance is to make sure that we have a strong corporate plan, and that was produced last year and is understood by staff. And that corporate plan revolves around 3 priorities. And I think all members and officers know this, but I'm just going to say them again, if I may. One is value for money for our residents. Secondly is supporting business and creating jobs. And thirdly is tackling inequalities. And those 3 key priorities drive the spending and our ambition for the county. As well as that, it's important to have calm and sensible leadership at both levels of political and officer areas. And I think that we have that now. In fact, I know we have that now. We have a top executive director team, and their good governance and leadership filters down through the organisation in a very impressive way. We have challenge, and we've improved our scrutiny function to allow that challenge to become sharper. And I think we all like challenge. It is the right to keep an administration on its toes, and that is a good way of doing it. We have broadened our appeal to all members by having, for example, in the last financial year, a much greater ability for all members to become involved in all parts of the council, whether that's through our policy conferences, which is a new idea, which is developing and has had some very good results so far, and we're going to improve on that this coming year, and also, of course, by our budget process. And we have made our budget process unrivaled, in my view, in terms of consultation, in terms of talking to people and listening back. But we're going to improve it even more this coming year by having a parish and town council focus group that will have a significant say in where we go. But the priorities that I outlined will always be there. They will be the driver of our budget. They will be the driver of everything we do. So I'm proud of what we've done in terms of leadership. I'm proud of the fact that I think most members get on well. Now, there will always be 2 or 3 members who have perhaps do not have the wish to be corporate, perhaps don't have the wish to look at being a councillor as being a county councillor, but more to create and follow their own agenda. But you can take a horse to water and you can't make it drink. So we're doing everything we can, and we have done everything, and we will continue to do everything we can to get all members to think positively on this council and remember that they are here for residents. And finally, I would just say I'm very proud of the fact that a corporate peer review carried out, as you know, recently and taken to council, has said we ought to be very proud of the progress we've made as a council. That's not just in terms of all the services and the delivery, protecting the frontline services and creating these magnificent projects across the county that will serve generations to come. But they recognise the governance improvements that have taken place across the council, and that's hugely important, and that is reflected, Chairman, in this report.
Thank you, Leader, for introducing that report. So, as I set out on page 85, the purpose of the report is for this committee to consider whether it properly reflects the risk environment and the supporting assurances. I also read in the report that the decision to approve this or not is with this committee, not full council. So this is a decision we're being asked to make on the recommendations at paragraph 3. So just please bear that in mind. Do we have any questions or comments on this from members of the committee? Councillor Dale.
Somebody has to start somewhere. Thank you very much. Can I just ask you, one of the things, the peer review, and I think just to note that in this, it says achieving value for money. Maybe we should ask what the peer review have said, by that we need to understand more what we mean by delivering value for money. That's in the peer review report, and I did bring that up at full council, but it's obviously something that really needs highlighting, and we really need to get underneath to understand that everybody understands what achieving value for money is and what it means. So I think that is very much part of what the peer review said. So that was one. The other one was just to go through the... wait a minute, where do I get down? I have to go through... I have read this in detail because I always do. It's just about the past piece, sorry. Does anybody else want to ask a question while I just look for the right page, because I've got them marked?
Would you like me to answer that?
Well, while you're looking, why don't... Yes, if the leader wants to speak.
Okay, if I can. I mean, I'm absolutely clear about what value for money means for us. It means making sure that council taxpayers get not just the services that they would expect to get, carried out properly, which they do get, but all the additional other things that this council provides. For example, a leisure offer that is pretty much second to none for any council of this size. New car parks and car parking free car parking in town centres, and a whole range of different offers, so that residents can feel that for their money they're getting not just those services in education, adult social care, social services, roads and all those other things. They're getting them done in addition to what they would normally expect as regular services. Now, I think Councillor Dale makes a useful point, because they did question the important programme of BEST. And I think they were right to do that, because this is a very important project. Not an easy one, but it's one that we have to get right so that we can demonstrate value for money by ensuring that the services we provide are done in the most efficient and effective way, and that they provide value for money for what residents pay. And that, Councillor Dale, is the important question for me, and we will be monitoring very carefully how that goes.
Thank you, Councillor Sanson. I'll just ask Kevin to comment on that too, because I think value for money also does have a more technical definition as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so just to add to the leader's comments, Chair, I think within the annual governance statement as well, there is reference to the plans moving forward as well, in terms of the actions, in terms of clearly BEST is recognised as a huge thing for the authority moving forward. And just in the action tables at page 115, there is BEST talked about and the action being taken regarding BEST. And also on page 117, there is specifically the value for money section and the description of the action that the authority is taking. From the head of internal audit perspective, obviously that's something that as an audit team we're key to focus on. And without spoiling the surprise of what's kind of about to come later on the agenda, obviously in terms of the audit plan, you would expect to see aspects of value for money and BEST within there, and how the internal audit service helps support the organisation moving forward along those lines. Just so that, you know, in terms of the priorities as the leaders talked about, how we can make sure they are delivered for our residents. So,
thank you, Kevin. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Yeah, I welcome this annual governance statement. I think that you know, the council has moved forward quite significantly over the last year or two, particularly over the last year in terms of governance. And a lot of governance that we have to adhere to is laid down by law and statute, and you know, we have to be clear about that. And what law and statute does is it actually puts the ultimate responsibility to all the members of the council. And that's why it's so important to have members and members' responsibilities and members' rights at the heart of the governance of this organisation and the heart of the Constitution. And the council has obviously moved quite a long way towards that. But it also, sort of national statute lays down duties of what are defined as statutory officers. So we have the chief executive, we have the section 151, and we have the monitoring officer. And it's quite clear in law what their responsibilities and duties are. And it was good to see at the last council meeting that the monitoring officer actually took those duties seriously and presented a report to full council. It's something that we haven't had in this council for a long time, is statutory officers honouring their duty to actually report directly to council when there is a major issue. And I just hope that will happen again in the future. And it's one of the things that gives councillors comfort that if there is anything untoward within the council, then it will be reported direct to them rather than papered over and covered up. The only thing I do wish in the report from last week is that it was a bit franker in the ways in which the statutory responsibilities of the council had not been carried out and leading to what could be called unlawful behaviour. But again, we are moving in the right direction, and if anything like that were to happen again, be in no doubt it's the lawful duty of statutory officers to bring these things to the attention of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Dale.
I found what I was going to ask further down, and it really actually follows what Councillor Jackson's saying. And I think that is, if you go back to the page 12 of the report of the Director of Law and Governance. And I do think that when the report was given last time, was given to Audit, it did actually make, at the end, there was a reference to the investigations since 2017. And I just think that needs to be added in because it draws a line under all the police investigations, and the response from the police draws a line right across to say that is all finished, being looked at, and I think that the public should know that. It's in here, it was put in the public domain, but as we've got part one of the director report in the actual annual government statement, we should have the rest of that report. It's only 2 paragraphs, but I just think it would draw a line under the whole of that discussion, conversation going back. Otherwise, we've got this mistrust, which peer review mentioned. This would draw a line certainly under that, which I think would be helpful. Do you want me to read it out? Quite happy. I mean, it just after going through the thing about the opportunity about the Directive Law, this is about the statutory officer payments.
I think to be fair, Councillor Dale, I think you've made your point.
I think so. Could we?
There's others who wish to speak, so I think we need to.
Yes, but could I ask that that's be included in, please?
Can I just speak on that particular subject?
Quickly, please.
Maybe the legal officer will
it's an important
sort of clarify. But my understanding is that a referral has been made to the police. The police are still investigating. And we as a committee would expect a report back once that police investigation is completed. But I understand it's still ongoing, so we can't do what Councillor Day wants us to do.
This is about the...
Sorry, Councillor Dale, could I just ask Neil to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it goes back to the point that was made on the minutes right at the beginning of the committee. The monitoring officer has spoken on this matter at the last committee, and there's no change to that position. I think that covers what Councillor Jackson was saying. Even when there is any information to report to this committee, the monitoring officer will do that, but we're certainly not in a position to do that now. I'm finding it harder to follow what Councillor Dale is requesting. I wonder if that could be clarified.
The report very clearly said, I would also like to take this occasion to advise members, I I would also like to take this occasion to advise members of recent communication from Northumbria Police in relation to matters concerning Arch North East. This was a matter raised by Northumberland County Council in 2017. The police advised that since 2017, Northumbria Police have undertaken 3 separate investigations led by trained and accredited senior investigating officers. Following the conclusion of all investigations, they are satisfied that the threshold of criminality has not been met and the evidence does not support any further police action. And I think that would just draw a line under the past police investigations which took place but have never been had a line drawn under.
Sorry.
Whatever. I just think...
I think there's others wanting to speak, so we do need to move on, but I think what we're not clear on is what you're actually asking to happen. We can't make a decision here to draw a line under anything. What could you be clear, please, Councillor Dale, on what it is you're asking to be taken forward?
I would like that to be included in the annual governance statement under V1, the report of Director of Law and Governance on page 12.
I don't need to do an issue for me, Chair. I think we have to go back to officers. Chair, it's not really an issue for me. I'm not the author of the report.
No.
If
Yes,
there is any proposals for any additions to the annual governance statement, I think they can be made and officers can take them into account.
Okay.
Do we not need to agree this today?
Yes, the recommendations are there, Chair, to be agreed. But again, it's not myself who can give an answer to that question.
Councillor Weirmouth.
So I think the suggestion, if I understand it,
we're trying to answer a question, Councillor Grimshaw, so it's probably best to keep it together. If this is pertinent to the question that's been asked.
It is. I think that what's been asked is the report's changed, and just to be clear, it's. I think it's a report of the author in question, so I don't think, as Neil has said, that they're available to say one way or the other whether they would accept that change. You could minute it, which it's going to be minuted anyway, because Councillor Dale has mentioned it. So might that be a neat solution to you digging yourself out of this back and forth, perhaps, or does that not solve the problem?
We are being asked to approve it and to approve the statement and to agree the draft annual governance review today. So do we not... do we need to do that today, or is this a matter that can be deferred to allow for some amendments? Chris?
Yeah, I think that obviously the approval today is for the draft AGS to be published alongside the draft statement of accounts as at the end of May. The final one, there will be an opportunity to approve that when the final accounts are signed as well. So if we could take that.
If I've understood that right, we're looking at the drafts and the publication of the draft, so further amendments could be made. So we can, as Councillor Weirmouth has suggested, we could clearly minute that request and take that forward, but still continue with the recommendations as written.
Yeah, thank you. I think this went through that same process last year where we came back again.
I think we have an answer to the question. There are others wishing to speak. Councillor Grimshaw.
I totally agree with Councillor Dale, because there are implications with other people that was involved, and so therefore, I think that we should, in the minutes, that we should seek for a full apology as well. I'd like to go a little bit further. Apologetic letter sent to those who was involved and has been vindicated because their life was made a misery. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. Yes, it might be going further in another stage, but that's how I feel too. Thank you,
I'll note your comments on. Do we really need to come back?
You do,
that?
Yes. With your indulgence,
I will indulge,
Chair.
But I'm starting to get a bit frustrated.
I think you need to be careful of the language. The police have been quite clear, and Councillor Dale was kind enough to read out exactly what was said by the monitoring officer, which is that it didn't meet the threshold for criminality, I think was the wording. That does not mean that people were vindicated or that things were not detected in our processes that needed some form of remedy or action. So be very careful to make such claims, because they're potentially inappropriate. The reports that were brought by Kevin and his colleagues previously were based on fact.
Councillor Oliver.
May I just propose the recommendations because it's my paper, or does somebody else do that?
Can we hear from
they've done that,
members of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think part of this back and forth that we've had has arisen out of, and this was a point I was going to make before it all happened. I would just ask that we have a bit more clarity, because this report on page 12 doesn't actually say a Section 5 notice was issued by the monitoring officers of the full council. So there's been a sort of bit of a misunderstanding. We're talking about two different things. On the one hand, we're talking about what happened pre-2017. On the other hand, we're talking about more recent events relating to unlawful payments. And the two things are entirely separate. But I think the lesson we can learn is that when we bring something to full council, because we had this report, it was a very scant report, and we also had an email asking us to be very careful about what questions we asked for good reason. But I just think if we'd had a bit more detail, a little bit more sort of, just more detail really, then some of this confusion wouldn't arise. So that was just the point I was going to make. And then another point I was going to make, which is more positive, is that it also says in this report about the strengthened scrutiny arrangements. And I just sort of think we should welcome those, and they are working well so far as I can see.
Cameron.
I think it might just be worth reminding everybody the purpose of the statement. So the statement is to describe the governance framework in place within the council from the 1st of April 2023 to the 31st of March 2024. So the arrangements in place during that period. So the purpose is to describe those arrangements, consider the review of effectiveness of those arrangements, concluding whether or not there's areas for improvement, and then to report on those areas and the actions the council is planning to address those. It's subject to audit. Kevin's team tend to have a look at it too, but we audit it formally. We have to conclude in it and report within the audit report that's signed and put into the statement of accounts. So whatever happens in draft we will look at, but it's worth just reminding the committee, I think, it's about 1st April 23 to the 31st March 24. Not necessarily dealing with a lot of historic things, unless historic things suggest there's an ongoing weakness in the council's arrangements for that period. Things outside of that period that aren't ongoing clearly might be something else in terms of reporting to council or to the committee, but not necessarily part of the annual governance statement itself, which to me, having read it and not audited it yet, does seem to be a fairly accurate description of the arrangements we've seen from ongoing work with the council over the last few years, but more pertinently up to this point in time for 23-24.
Right, I think we can move on. We've had some useful information there from Cameron. I'll repeat, this is to approve the draft annual governance statement, and it's to agree the draft annual governance review to be published on the council's website. That's what we're being asked to do. So I think it's important to note, you can feed in comments, we can minute the comments that have been made about dates and drawing a line. Personal view on that is I wouldn't be too keen on that, because, as has been pointed out, certain thresholds may not have been met, but if new evidence comes to light, I wouldn't like to think that things are then not looked into again if necessary, personally speaking. And I think council taxpayers would expect us to do that if that was necessary. But that's not really, as Cameron's outlined, that's not really the purpose of what we're being asked to do here today. Before we move the recommendations, are there any further comments? And Councillor Sanson, you did say you might have wanted to say something else.
I would. I said actually halfway through what I was saying, I hope we can see more positivity. I welcome the positive remarks from members here. We don't want to keep going back because we know the processes are underway, but I'm very proud of this, and I'm very proud of the way that members have worked together, by and large, to get to where we are.
Right. Thank you. So, can I have someone to move the recommendations, please? Councillor Jackson, seconder, Councillor Rolliver. Is everyone agreed on that? Okay. Right, thank you. Now, we get back to that term value for money, I think, in the next report, which is the strategic audit plan for 24-25. And Kevin, you're introducing this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Committee, this is a report which I bring to you every March, which is our plan of work for the coming year, so in this instance 2024-25, and follows on from the report we brought to the last meeting in January, outlining the process we were going to follow in terms of developing that plan. And this is obviously the outcome from that work. Within the report, we talk around some of the methodology that we use to make sure that we undertake that assessment of risk across the organisation and undertake engagement with a number of stakeholders just to get their views and make sure that our assumptions are correct. And then see, we deal some of the areas within the plan, including some of the topics that we've already mentioned during the meeting, which is such as value for money, such as best. Obviously, the audit plan reflects our corporate risk register because those are the risks we've identified as our main risks in the organisation. So it's right that that forms one of the bases of the audit plan that we prepare, which obviously has to be based on an assessment of risk. So the plan in detail begins on page 135 in the papers and just is in the normal format which I'm sure members are familiar with seeing, and details all the areas within the plan for the coming year that it's currently proposed that we would undertake. And obviously we also include a link through for that piece of work through to the corporate plan, just because there is that thread of work that we do and the reasons why we do it. Hopefully a lot of that work within that plan will be familiar to members and kind of understand exactly why we're doing it. And obviously we will then report on progress towards delivery of that plan through the next year as we would ordinarily. We've attached to this plan, Chair, just a couple of appendices. We regularly bring the internal audit charter to audit committee, which you'll be aware of, and we've taken the opportunity to bring a refreshed audit charter through to committee today with the plan for next year. There is no fundamental change in terms of the charter. It continues to reflect the public sector internal audit standards. It's maybe just a bit aesthetically. We've tried to change it and make it a bit more reader-friendly and a bit more flow, a bit easier. But there are no fundamental changes in terms of the content. And committee are also obviously aware that we've identified our improvement actions, and obviously from our self-assessment and from our external assessment against the standards. And we've just included an update on page 153, which is just bringing all of those together to give committee an update on the position statement against all of those actions, which I think I promised to do in the January meeting. Chair, I'm not proposing to go through it in any more detail than that, but I'm obviously happy to or take any questions if members would like.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Oliver?
Just a comment arising out of what Kevin said about the internal audit charter. Our previous chair asked for the terms of reference of this committee to be sort of circulated with the paper every month, and then that for some reason stopped happening. I'm not suggesting it needs to happen, but it might be worth circulating the terms of reference to all of the members of the committee, because I'm not sure how much there's been a lot of change to the Constitution and they form part of the Constitution. I'm not sure how much change there's been to the actual terms of reference for this committee, but it would be useful just to sort of to sort of have that circulated, not necessarily printed out, but maybe circulated electronically.
Yeah, that seems to be fine, yes. Thank you. Good suggestion. Any further comments or questions on this report? Peter.
Yeah, can I just ask a sort of technical question? And I think this is a well presented piece of work, and it's mature and it reflects in many ways the sort of calm business-like approach that I think the council has shown in this committee, generally speaking, over the last year. But I had a specific question because of the proposal to do benefits realisation work, which is a difficult and challenging technical area, and I'm just seeking some assurance that Kevin you do have people who, you know, who know how to make that happen. So over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, and I think this goes back to a comment we made on an earlier agenda item around how the internal audit team works alongside colleagues for the BEST programme. And there's probably a mix. Now, when we've prepared the plan, we've prepared it on the basis of a best guess at the information we have currently. And I guess a plan can only be a plan, so it is obviously subject to change. But any change we make, we will report back. And as I've described to the committee before, we have that difference of work we can do, which is a traditional internal audit review and a programme assurance review where we will work with the team to help and pick up controls as we go. And I think the benefit realisation piece of work that you talked about, Peter, would fall into the latter category. So at the moment, the team are working through the benefit realisation model, and we would be sitting with those officers to say, okay, so how are you going to make that work? How are you going to pick that up? How are we going to make sure that things aren't double counted and things like that? How do we actually define what we mean as a benefit and define the realisation? So yes, the short answer to the question is yes, and that's sort of how we propose to do that. It may be that there's a subsequent backward look internal audit review at a later point in time, but that's the nature of the work that we see within 24-25.
Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. Just actually on that subject, one of the concerns I have, which is it's not a concern, but I would like more information about, is we deliver service on behalf of the government, and we obviously have KPIs accordingly for statutory services. And I would like to make sure that the KPIs are, well, the service delivery is actually realising those KPIs at the level at which this council wants to deliver that service. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because to me, that's one of the main things that we need to understand about what our statutory services and actually how we are, responding with our KPIs, and which level will the government come in and say, because we're there delivering that service on their behalf. And I think that would be a really useful piece to understand. Does that make sense to you?
Come back to that, Chair. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Dale, you're right. That is a key area of importance for the council, where actually we have a piece of work in the current year plan which is underway at the moment, which is obviously as the leader outlined earlier, and as members will all be aware, the new corporate plan, which was agreed in May, brought new objectives and new targets. And we've seen that falling through in terms of how that cascades through the organisation to determine what KPIs or PIs it's going to measure and how. We've also seen the introduction of offlog from DLUC, where we've kind of then got some new performance data and indicators being taken nationally. So we're working with the new head of performance and policy at the moment in terms of working that through, in terms of what does that mean for our performance management framework, what do we need, and how are we going to devise our basket of KPIs, or how we want to phrase it. And that work's actually ongoing at the moment. So once we've done that, we'll then bring that through committee in the normal fashion. The second part of that work, if you like, is what we've included within the plan, sort of calling it data quality. So it's once we've determined what performance measures we want to measure and how we're going to report it, how do we ensure that we're getting the data, the correct data, to accurately report and reflect on that and what that's telling us. So it is in there. It may not be not explicit in terms of performance indicators, but just to give the committee that assurance that that area is an area of our focus. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? Not seeing anyone indicating. Right, so the recommendations are at 3.1 A, B and C on page 123 of your pack. The first two were being asked to approve, the final were being asked to note. So can I have someone to move the recommendations, please? Councillor Dale, seconder. Councillor Grimshaw. You've done a lot today, Councillor Oliver, so we'll give that one to Councillor Grimshaw. Is everyone agreed on those? Agreed? Fantastic, thank you. Item 12 is a verbal update from our external auditors. Cameron.
Thanks, Chair. Things have moved on a little bit since the report in January. Unfortunately, there's been a bit of sickness within the team, so things are a little bit behind where we'd like. But the audits of 1920, 2021 and 21-22 are fundamentally complete. For those years, apart from VFM, which we've talked about previously at length, but that's in hand at the moment. 1920, the accounts is finished. We just need to finish the work. 2021, the work in the accounts is pretty much finished. We just need to finish doing the work. 21-22, broadly finished, but we do have some issues around about property, plant and equipment valuations still that need to be resolved, that are also an issue in the 22-23 audit, where we've made quite a lot of progress. It's just not finished yet. I'm not going to bore you with the technicalities, but your valuer has got a different view to us in terms of the way you should value things. They're a valuer, I'm an auditor, so I've asked our valuer, who's a valuer, and we just have a different view in terms of the split between the land element of the valuation and the building. They do it in a particular way. We don't think that's the way it should be done. It's a debate at the moment, so we're asking them to show us that they're right. The other issue is building on the report that went to the recent council meeting about exit packages. I'm not going to go through all of that again, but clearly the decision by the monitoring officer and Section 151 officer to report the way they did around about unlawful exit packages means that there's something we have to consider in the context of our audit. And in practical terms, that means we need to go through an internal process to decide the impact that has on our audit reporting. So members might remember we've talked about this previously in relation to international, where clearly the Director of Finance issued 2 Section 114 notices some time ago. We've considered what the code says, what the accounts and audit regulations say about accounting. In our view, we wouldn't need to qualify the audit report on that issue as long as disclosures are made in the accounts that set out the position which has been done. What that might mean, though, is we consider putting a paragraph in that just refers specifically to the note in the accounts that sets out what's happened and what's been done about it. We're going through a similar position just now internally, but also in discussion with Jan around about the impact on the recent reports. My view, as things stand, but we've not gone through that consultation process yet, is that the most appropriate form of reporting is for the council to extend the disclosures in the accounts in relation to those issues for the years where the payments occurred. Yeah, important point. And then we will potentially have another one of these paragraphs that says we draw your attention to note, whichever note it is, I can't remember, which sets out exit packages. Yeah, but that's ongoing at the moment. And that'll probably take a little bit of time because it always does take a little bit of time if we need to take advice, etc. But that is in hand. So I was hoping, Chair, that I was broadly confident we might have got the early years done by the end of April. If I'm honest, I don't think that's going to happen, but it might because we are nearly there. 22-23 is, I think, going to be finished off in the summer. And I think previously we've discussed, broadly speaking, the backstop date, which is proposed to be September. There are lots of things that might mess with that date, not least a potential general election. I suspect any new government might have different ideas about priorities compared to sort of doing that. The other thing just to bear in mind is there's an ongoing sit for consultation around about things that can be done to make the account simpler, to try and reduce the backlog, if that makes sense, and just resolve the issue, to try and get things back on track as fast as possible. That's something we are consulted on, so we have a degree of influence, as do all the other firms. But you'll appreciate there's lots of stakeholders involved in those discussions before a final decision is actually made one way or another. So that's a watch this space, but it is quite important. I think the committee is aware of that ongoing consultation and the potential statutory impact of backstop legislation if and when it's ever enacted. I've not got really much else to say, Chair. We've signed off, one of your grant claims was signed off earlier this week. We have to do 3 grant claims for you. One of pulled housing receipts, so where you sell a right to buy, some of that gets pulled and you get some of it back. The benefits claim and the teacher's pension. So that's all 3 of them now done for 22-23. Those are out of the way, which is quite helpful because you can, DWP can get a little bit excited sometimes when the benefits claims are submitted late. They've been known to withhold money in the past, though they haven't done that for some time because of the pandemic. So.
Very good, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members of the committee for Cameron? No? Thank you very much for that, Cameron. I do have a couple of questions actually myself. just hopefully a quick one. Are you happy that you're getting, and you've received promptly and in sufficient detail all the information you've been asking for from the authority?
Generally, yes, Chair. An audit is an audit's an audit. So we have the concept of audit evidence is something that we hold dear to our heart, and that sometimes takes a little bit of time. We can have queries. We sometimes have questions where we get a bit of an answer, but maybe not the whole story, where we have to go back. The council uses experts in several areas. We have to sort of appoint our own experts or use other evidence to sort of ratify that. We've spent quite a bit of time auditing pension funds. We've only got pension fund assurance fairly recently from the audit of Townware Pension Fund. So that's held things up as well. So there's lots of different things at play. We've had some resourcing issues ourselves as a firm, which has meant things have taken longer than they should have done. We've had sickness ditto. So it's a bit of, we just need to sort of liaise with Jan, Chris, Alison and others within the finance team to make sure that we get that outstanding audit evidence on a timely basis. We make sure that any amendments that are required to the accounts are made and correct. And where the council chooses not to amend because they're immaterial, we need to make sure that we report those comprehensively so that the committee can make a decision that you're happy with it, because when all said and done, you're approving the accounts on behalf of the council after Jan signs them. So answer to your question is yes, but there tends to be a bit of an iterative process in terms of audit queries and evidence, etc.
That's understood. It just really just getting at previous years when we've had some
we have had several issues in previous years, but generally speaking, it's been a lot smoother more recently, I think, is probably the best way to put it. Partly because I think the finance team have lots of different things to do. And the audit is one of those things that they have to do. Where there's lots of other complicated things on at the same time, which can take time, then that means there isn't quite the same resource to facilitate the audit. That can stretch things out. And then we're into resourcing issues on our side. So it's been a lot smoother than it has been, certainly over the last, I think, probably 18 months, actually, in terms of audit process.
I think other members of the committee will be reassured to hear that. One other thing when you were talking about...
we actually think you've got a good finance team, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no,
but don't minute that, because I'll get shot by somebody. But we genuinely think the council's got a good finance team, and we would also echo the leader's comments around about financial sustainability.
Yeah.
So one of the key things we do from a VFM point of view is we look at the financial performance of the council, the financial position of the council. We compare you to, I'm going to say your peers, but local North East authorities, for example, etc. And while nobody's ever completely comfortable, and there are certainly challenges all councils face, we think you are in a reasonably secure financial position. And I think that helps too. Our concerns over the last few years, as yours have been around about governance rather than the financial sustainability, or indeed the performance criteria, because actually, if you look at that report you've just had around about regulatory performance from CQC and Ofsted, there's quite a lot of councils across the land that would be very pleased to see that report, I'm sure. So the key thing for us is the governance things. We think, I personally think, and we'll get there when we finish the audit off, things have been a lot calmer for some time now, certainly throughout 23-24. The important thing for us is to make sure that we get the tone, content, and the reflections in our reporting correct, I think, around about that side of things.
And obviously the main focus of this committee is governance and assurance. And I think, as I say, we hear that, and we'll all be very happy to hear your views on that. And certainly I share the view that we have a very strong finance team and a very strong financial position, at least comparatively. You hear quite bad things about other councils going bankrupt, and we are obviously not in that anywhere near that position. In fact, seem to be.
You appreciate, Chair, that many councils have had to go to Secretary of State with potential Section 114 notices because of financial sustainability, and essentially a lot of what they've been allowed to do is to capitalise revenue expenditure.
Yeah.
So in other words, borrow to spend it, which is to some extent kicking the can down the road, I think. Yeah. That's not something you've had to do, which is good.
I find that very reassuring.
As a taxpayer of Northumberland, it's good.
I find that very reassuring, and I'm sure others will too. One question when you're talking about differences in opinion on valuation, that popped into my head. I remember a while ago, I think Jan mentioning to a meeting probably a year or two ago about new rules, excuse me, on valuing council's assets and then having to value assets such as bridges and roads and core infrastructure.
Yep.
I don't know where that got to. Is that something that we have to do, and is that part
so,
of the difference in approach?
We've talked about it a few times, Chair. I think you might have missed one of the meetings where I probably went into it in a little bit more detail. So you're talking about infrastructure assets. Mm-hmm. They are a tricky subject because, generally speaking, councils like yourselves tend to have a lot of them all over the place that can be quite old, and most councils don't necessarily have absolutely complete and accurate records. I'm being very diplomatic because you didn't really need to. That became a bit of a hot topic a couple of years ago where some auditors raised this, and then there was a lot of excitement in the sector. And there was a proposed solution that was going to be very complicated and very expensive, so it got kicked down the road again. However, on the 25th of December, Chris will hopefully correct me if I get the year wrong, but I think it was the 25th of December 2022, the Secretary of State basically put a statutory override in place for infrastructure assets, which allowed the council to account for them and amend the disclosures in your accounts to make them a lot more simple for us to audit. It's a short to sort of medium term fix that, because at some point, if the accounting standards remain as they are and the statutory overrides removed, all councils will need to make sure they've got complete asset registers so they're able to account for them properly. The issue isn't really the accounting, the issue is more the accuracy of the sort of what you've got, where it is, how old it is, what state it's in. So that's the issue. At the moment, statutory override applies. We dealt with that as part of the 21-22 audit. We've got the assurance we need over that area. We've concluded in that area, and there have been some amendments to the accounts as a result of that work, but that's dealt with until the override runs out. And then Chris, with these property team and everybody else, will have the joy of trying to resolve all the issues that no doubt Northumberland, not all of the councils will have.
Right, great. Thank you for that. Not seeing anyone else wanting to speak on that, so thank you very much.
Chair, I just need to very quickly brief the committee because we've let Jan know. So this is my last, 22-23 will be my last year as a council's external auditor. So there'll be a new key audit partner appointed by the firm at that point in time. For the current year, you've just been talking about 23-24. I know who it's likely to be at the moment, but until the firm's absolutely firmed everything else up, it's probably better I just don't say in case it changes. But it will be a very experienced key audit partner, somebody that I've worked with for 20 odd years plus, right. I would guess, because there are certain options within the firm. My guess it will be a partner because of your size and importance and some of the risks you've had in the past in terms of risk profile.
Well,
so when I deal with 22-23, I shall be off.
Right. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm sure I speak for everybody when we say we've appreciated and enjoyed working with you over the last few years on matters.
Sometimes it's probably the word.
more often than not, I would say. Thank you very much for that. So, item 13, I'm not aware of any urgent business. No. Item 14, the date of the next meeting is Wednesday, the 29th of May, again at 10 o'clock. There's no pre-meeting planned for that, is my understanding. If we could move on to part 2, so we're asked to consider passing the standard resolution to exclude the press and public under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. That's A and B. The public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosure and the reasons set out in the agenda. Are we happy to approve that? Do we need a proposer? Right. Proposer, Councillor Sesford, seconder. Councillor Dale. We're all agreed on that.